Everybody. This evening, we are looking at an application from Ed Libby, and he is seeking permission to split a lot into two lots, each of which must be as conforming as possible to the applicable standards as determined by the board. So a couple of things, as usual, preliminary to opening the hearing. As you just said, you all knew that there were three of us. We have to have at least three, and we have exactly that. And I don't know whether, Mr. Libby, you want to answer if you can continue this if you'd like to have more, but every vote, if it's positive, needs 3 positive votes. So we have to be unanimous.
So I'm the applicant.
Oh, you're the applicant?
Yes.
Oh, when she talked to Mr. Libby. Oh, okay.
It's Mr. Libby Senior and Mr. Libby Junior.
Well, she didn't say that. Okay. So Mr. Libby Jr. is answering questions, right?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. All three of us are regular members. I don't know whether, it seems like everybody knows everybody else. This is Sandy Cox. This is Sandy Cox. This is Steve Beveridge, and I'm Deb Chapman. Okay. And Sandy and Steve, do either of you have a conflict of interest?
Not that I'm aware of. I know everybody in the room. I know the previous owner of the property. I've known these guys for years, but I don't think there's any conflict of interest there. I mean, it's a small town.
Hard to avoid.
I'm the same way. I know all the players, but I have no conflict
Great.
of interest.
Well, I don't know any of them, and I don't have any conflict. Okay. So the next step is standing, to establish standing. Is that correct? Yes? And so I will ask, well, maybe I'll just read these two and then call for a vote. So I make a motion to find as a fact that the property owner as shown on the application is Gordon Payne. Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
All in favor.
Okay. 3 yeses. The second one is to find as a fact. I make a motion to find as a fact that the applicant, Ed Libby, has a purchase and sale agreement with Gordon and Jennifer Payne dated January 18th, 2023 for the property at 45 Riverside Drive that is in effect through March 24th, 2023. This valid purchase and sale agreement provides the applicant with standing to apply. Second?
Second?
All in favor? 3-0. And so now we move to the public hearing. And I can't believe we have to read this every time, but the following procedure will be followed for the public hearing process. 1, the Director of Planning and Development will introduce the application and explain why it is before the board. 2, the board will hear from the applicant or the applicant's representative who will offer testimony and evidence in support of the application. 3, the board will then seek comments from members of the public who wish to speak, comment, or ask questions. Speakers must identify themselves for the record by name and address. 4, all comments and all questions of the applicant must be directed through the chair. The chair may exclude irrelevant or unduly repetitious comments. 5, the first public comment period will be closed and members of the board will be given the opportunity to ask questions of the applicant and/or the public. The second public comment will be open for the purpose of hearing new and relevant information only. 6, the second public comment period will be closed, and if members have no further questions or comments, the public hearing will be closed. 7, the board will begin deliberation. There will be no further comment from the applicant or the public. A board member may ask for clarification, but no new evidence may be entered into the record by way of testimony unless it was erroneously omitted. It is not appropriate for the public to interject during board deliberations. 8, the board will then review the applicable standards and either approve the application, deny the application, or approve with conditions. An affirmative vote for at least 3 members is required for approval. Okay, so, all right, now, Shenley, You're going to do a summary?
Okay, like as stated before, the application before you is a request for the agent, for the owner, for the property owner, to split the lot and be able to split a single existing lot that is located within the town's shoreland zoning area. And it's got a designation zoning of VE, Village Extension. And I guess what your main task to do is to find that the proposal by the applicant is as conforming as possible with the existing regulations in the town code. It's a non-conforming lot, a legal non-conforming lot at this point. The town adopted the shoreland zoning ordinance and the zoning ordinance in, I think it was November 4th, 1992. So once that became adopted and became effective, that rendered the existing property a legal non-conforming use. So it's been in existence. I believe the houses were built in the 30s. We have records in the town office that it was indeed a single lot of record prior to the adoption of the ordinance. So we know that, and that's documentation here, or I can testify to that it is a legal non-conforming lot in existence. So in my quick memo, I just went over the brief part of the code, which puts you why it's here. And if you refer to your code, Article 6, nonconformance, it says 296.2. You may have that in your packet. It says nonconforming lots. If you go down to B, lots with structures, because this is an existing lot with two structures, existing residential structures. Go down to B, lots with structures, and then go to number 2. And this is the applicable part of the ordinance that applies to this situation. And the last paragraph says, if 2 or more principal uses or structures existed on a single lot of record on the effective date of this chapter, each may be sold on a separate lot, provided that the above referenced law and rules are complied with. When such lots are divided, each lot thus created must be as conforming as possible to the dimensional requirements of this chapter as determined by the Zoning Board of Appeals. So this is why this is before you today. And under the Article 7 Zoning Board of Appeals, there's a 7.3 powers and duties, and it specifically says you can do changes in non-conforming uses or lots, structures, and uses in the shoreland area, because that's where this is. It says to approve with conditions, or disapprove requests to. And number 2, it says divide a single lot of record that has 2 or more principal uses or structures as authorized in Article 6, Chapter 296.2B2, which is what I just read you. So this is kind of goes around in circles, but this is why it's before you today. And the nonconformance portion of this property would be specifically it would be the lot area. You have 2 applicable ordinances. You have your regular zoning requirements, setbacks, and lot area for the VE Village District, but you also have another set of zoning regulations, which are the shoreland zoning. And that tells you what your lot area should be and what your shore frontage should be. And I think Mr. Libby I could let him go into that, but he's kind of outlined that on the site plan over there on the right side where it says dimensional standards. So he should be having 40,000 square feet per dwelling unit, and he does not have that. So he's got 20,000 in spare for each dwelling unit. So he's non-conforming in that respect, and his shore frontage should be 200 feet. But it's a 162, which by providing you this drawing, he's showing you how he's going to try and comply with being as conforming as possible by drawing the line for the split. And that'll show you setbacks and frontage and all that. So I don't want to get too much into it, but that's pretty much in a nutshell.
Something I'd like to add also, that Mr. Libby took this to the state for the zoning, for the shoreline zone, and he had it reviewed, and they came back and said that what he's requesting to do would be applicable or able to do that based on the shoreline zone that the state enforces. So I think that's something that's worth
Right.
noting.
Okay, Mr. Libby, I think we're ready for your presentation.
Can you hear me?
Push the.
I mean, I know
yeah,
you
got
can,
it.
but is it?
The rest of the world can, maybe we can.
Thanks. And thank you, Shenley and Clint. Yeah, I mean, basically what Shenley has described is what I'm here for, but I could go back a little bit and maybe share a little bit about my process and sort of how this came about. My background is in real estate and development, and I'm kind of a zoning nerd. But I've had a lot of experience on waterfront properties, subdivisions, non-conforming, all these things is sort of I've had a lot of experience in. And I was sharing with Clint when I first came in a couple of months ago, actually how I became aware of this particular sort of buried provision in the state's shoreland zoning ordinance, and then depending on the town, many of them have adopted the same rule, was because I was looking at a piece of property that I didn't think could be divided, and then later I saw it was divided. I saw it come back up on MLS, and I thought, how the heck did that person be able to do that? And I followed up because I'm curious and I'm interested in those kind of things. I looked at the registry, I tracked down the person. I said, well, how did you do that? And they said, oh, we just asked the town and they said it was okay. So then I called the town, and the guy that would be Clint over there, this is in the town of Emden. I said, how did you do that? And he pointed me to this provision. And that was maybe 15 years ago, but it stuck with me. And then specifically here, some of you know my dad. I mean, they've live next door and have been friends with the Paynes for quite a long time, and always talked about the possibility of, when the Paynes got tired of that property, we would be interested in maybe purchasing it. So those things sort of came together at the same time. And I thought, okay, I wonder if this might work here. And so I started looking into it. I saw that Camden did have the same provision. And so I got a hold of Clint and said, hey, here's what I'm thinking about. I'd like to come in and talk to you about it. And it was something that even Jeannie, in her long tenure, nobody had ever heard of it before. So it was a little bit of a learning curve for everybody. But they were patient and they worked through it. And here we are. So it sort of boils down to this, as conforming as possible is sort of lays in your lap to determine. So I did, as Clint said, I spoke with DEP initially about, am I reading this right? This is, just confirming, and then took it to the next step. They said, well, if you show us a drawing of what you're actually thinking of, we can comment specifically on that. So I did sort of a rough, and I think it's in your package if you saw it.
Yeah.
I was like, drew a line down the middle, and it was off the tax map, so it wasn't the actual survey. So the buildings are everything not quite exactly the way they appear on the survey, but yep, if you basically divide it, as best you can, and that looks pretty good, you're basically splitting it, that should work. So then I spoke further with everybody at planning office and said, I think this is basically what I want to do. What do you guys think? Because I don't want to come in and have somebody think that it wasn't the right thing and spin my wheels. And I said, yeah, that looks pretty much like the way you should do it. So then I got hold of Mark Ingraham, and we got down to the nitty gritty. went out into the field. He had surveyed this property a long time ago, but he went out and reconfirmed where everything was. There were a couple small changes with things that had changed since. So he located everything. We looked at what would be, how are we going to do this so that it really is a good package and sort of will stand up to scrutiny as conforming as possible. And our approach was, so let me back up. So one thing we knew is we couldn't, because of math, everything couldn't be equal. Okay, so something had to give. And so what we thought, and this is what I talked with the state and the planning department about, is if we took the road frontage and split it exactly in half, and we took the water frontage and split it exactly in half, and then split the distance between the two buildings exactly in half, where would it land? We didn't know where the area would land because we didn't, and so that's where Mark came in, and he could calculate that pretty quickly. And so it came out what we think is pretty darn close. And so that's the one. You could have other things vary, but we thought this was the best approach, and you were so close in the resulting land area that we thought, this is it. This is as conforming as we think we can be. And also, although it's not in the ordinance, is a good, we from a land use and sort of a lot sort of preparation, it's a good split. It really uses the distances between the houses so they have some space between them. And it just seemed like the obvious and logical way to go. So got him to draw this up. And I don't know if you had a chance, there's a lot of information on here. That's one thing that the planning department encouraged me to really get this stuff down there, analyze it, and show, because once that was sort of the fundamental thing. But then there were all these other ordinances in the background. They have the VE, the shoreland, all these things. And so we kept layering, we ought to show this and we ought to show that so that you guys could see it and understand, for lot coverage and all these things, that everything else is conforming and it works. And so that's the map you have in front of you. There's a lot of information on it. If anybody has any questions about it, I'd be happy to answer them. But that's really the question, is for you guys to sort of, stamp your seal of approval on whether that is as conforming as possible. So that's what I'm hoping you'll do.
Do either of you have a question on what he's presented?
No question.
No, it's very, very,
No, it's very helpful.
very, very well done plan.
I do have one little question, and it will display my ignorance more than anything else. The standards that you used for these inset boxes for
Yeah.
information, were they the same for shoreline zoning and village extension, or did you use one or the other?
I had to use both at the same time.
Okay.
So for instance, just one example is if you look in the VE under minimum lot size
Mhm.
with sewer,
Right.
it's 10,000 square feet.
Right.
But you got to read further, it's asterisk and say, well, if it's in the shoreland, then it's 40,000 square feet.
Right.
And so if this wasn't the shoreland zone, maybe that we wouldn't be here
Right.
talking, but because that extra requirement at 40,000 square feet
Okay.
results in the nonconformity.
Right. So you used mostly the shoreland requirements?
All,
for
all
these?
yeah, all of, I had to meet all of them
Right.
at the same time.
But shoreland was more restrictive?
Shoreland is more restrictive.
So it would
Yes.
include sort of whatever the village extension requirements were?
Yes, yeah. So in shoreland, so the two, and this is just sort of repeating what Shenley had said earlier, but shoreland, the two things where this fails conformity is area,
Mhm.
because each lot would normally have to be 40,000 square feet, and they just
Right.
aren't. And shore frontage, we just didn't have 400 feet, so we took
Right.
what we had and split it in half.
Right.
So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. No,
Okay.
it's exactly right. I mean, there's frankly, some of the requirements that I couldn't make heads or tails of when they were talking about minimum size within the shoreland zone, minimum width, those things, but we'll get around to that.
I'd be happy to comment on that if you'd like. So I'm a zoning nerd. So the minimum width, what the concept is on shoreline zoning, and it all sort of evolves over time where, you start with, back in the day, there was no shoreline zoning, and then they first introduced it and you had to have 50 feet of frontage, and then it was 100 feet of frontage, and it progresses. And we get up to 200 feet of frontage, but and that was when I became active. We were shifting into the 200. It was from 150 to 200 foot range. But then sometimes what you would have are irregular shorelines relative to the lot lines. So someone could have a property that might be, depending on the shape of the land and the lake shore frontage, it might be, for instance, 100 feet wide, but it could have 200 feet of shorefront because it's at an angle.
Right.
And so the state later then said, well, for this, and it's the setback is what they're looking at, and they're using lakefront for the amount of here it's 75 feet. For the amount of the setback, you have to actually have the width. It can't be on this funny angle. So that's where that comes
Okay.
from.
Oh, thank you. I'll spare Jeannie that question or Shanley that question at a later time. All right, so no other questions from either of you?
Looks like, you couldn't have split it any better. I mean, you've got this maximum frontage, maximum road frontage. You've got your setbacks, by splitting it down the middle. The only thing you don't have is the 40,000, but you've got an equal lot size that really conforms pretty well.
We tried our best.
I have a question. And probably the staff has this lot had an application to do this previously?
You can follow up if I don't get it right, but there was in the file, I'd call it a note. I think it was even handwritten during the Payne's ownership, but quite a while ago. And it was from a broker on behalf of the Paynes inquiring. And then the thing we noticed was there was nothing else in the file, like no answer to. Is that accurate? Yeah, Jeff Nims. So if you guys want to
Jeff
comment.
Nims. I believe that it was dated in 1998 when the
98,
Paynes
okay.
tried to do that.
I just wondered because this property's been around a while and it's just amazing that no waterfront property in this community hasn't been explored previously, so.
Well, this is, I will say, it's a pretty obscure piece of the ordinance. I don't think that many people are
Right.
aware of it.
Yep.
And just in talking with the Paynes and, being neighbors and stuff, they had said they had thought about it and they had tried, or they were under the impression that, and it could have been at the time that the rules were different.
Right.
I
Okay,
don't really know.
I just wondered why the previous owner hadn't.
Yeah, no, but I told, obviously they signed the thing. I said, hey, I'm going to try to do this. Like, oh, go for it. Good luck.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, there was a note and they had considered it, but no one really knows what happened.
No response, right?
Oh, it's
But
not
it's
handwritten,
it's in the
I'm sorry.
folder that goes with this property, right? Okay, yeah, okay.
So no other questions from the board at this point? Is your dad part of the public or is he?
Yes, he is.
So there's no members of the public here, so we won't have any testimony from them. So it's appropriate for us to close the public hearing and begin our deliberations. So I'll read this and then we'll vote, and then we'll start switching around who gets to read these. I make a motion to find that the Camden Code of Ordinances at Chapter 290, Articles 7(3) charges the Zoning Board of Adjustment with reviewing changes in non-conforming lots, structures, and uses in shoreland areas, including requests to 2, divide a single lot of record that has 2 or more principal uses or structures as authorized in Article 6, paragraph, is that paragraph? It is everywhere else. Paragraph 290-6.6B2. Second,
I'll second that.
all in favor? 3-0. And I will make a motion to find that Mr. Libby's request is to divide a lot of record at 45 Riverside Drive that is in the shoreland zone and has 2 structures. The board has the authority to review the application. Second,
Second?
all in favor? 3-0. Okay. So now we get into the stuff that's more complicated. We need to look at whether or not the application complies with that recently referenced Article 6.2B2, non-conforming lots. So this is the one you read, right, Shenley?
Yes, ma'am. This is the second paragraph. I want to give one paragraph.
I have 2, but it's the second paragraph that applies.
That's, yes.
Okay,
This is yes. There are 2 more principal uses.
okay. All right, so we need to make a motion, I assume, to find that the application complies with the requirements of Article 6.2B2.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Since Shenley has already read it, I don't think we need to reread it, right?
Get it right in.
Okay. We move on to Article 10, which are the performance standards for shoreline zone. Am I remembering right? Okay. To read all of it, the applicability section? No? We just have to go down through the requirements?
I don't think you can go through all of them. I think that in this particular situation, in that chart, it's a parcel along a non-tidal water. It talks about the minimum lot area,
Mhm.
and it has the minimum shore frontage.
Mhm.
Now, this is what they're not compliant with, but you're gonna say it's as conforming as possible, I would assume, if you go that route.
Right, but do we first have to find that those 2 things are non-conforming?
Well, I entered into the record that it was not-conforming by lot size
Okay.
and frontage, for shoreline frontage.
All right, so at this point, do we consider whether or not it's as conforming as possible?
Yes.
Okay. Gentlemen, I think you said some words to that effect, Sandy, right?
I think it is as as conforming as possible in dividing these 2 lots up. I don't think they could do a better job of meeting as much of the code as possible.
Given the size of the original
That's right.
lot. Do you want to make a motion that it's as non-conforming as possible with,
I will make a motion
conforming
that
as possible.
it's
Whoops.
as conforming as possible to maximize each lot to be as close to the code as possible.
I'm the second to-
And Article 10, to the standard of Article 10.
And conforms to Article 10, standards of Article 10.
and he doesn't have to mention the M1, just standards of,
No,
because there are other ones too, aren't there? On the back or the next page? That's where the minimum width was. But also ground coverage, is that an issue?
And he's met,
Yep.
he's
Okay.
met that, and it's, you know,
it's still all Article 10.
Okay, so we'll vote on in all of Article 10 then.
Well, you could say 10M,
Okay.
because I think these are all part of 10.
Okay, yep, okay. So do you want to do that? Just amend that slightly
just
to include.
amend it, to adding, do you say Article M or
10M.
10M? Article 10M, okay.
I second it. All in favor? Okay. All right. The next one is the Village Extension District. the standards. And let's see.
8.6E is your standards.
Right. And it's of those, the standards, E, there are two. So I need some help in, this is not broken up.
Go to number 4 on the very back page.
Yep,
It says that properties in the shoreline have to comply with Article 10.
oh, I'm not there yet.
So it's right there, second one down.
Aha.
There you go. So we don't have to look at the VE zone. It's really the shoreline zone that we have to comply with.
Ultimately, that's
Ultimately,
carries
yes.
It's more restrictive.
Yes.
And so if it meets that, or you find it as conforming as possible to that, you.
Then we've done both?
We've done both.
Okay.
It's as conforming as
Would
possible.
one of you like to make a motion? Okay, I will.
Go ahead.
I move that we find that the applicants, that the property, as designed, the property within the shoreland area complies with the additional standards set forth in Article 10, 290-10.2 of this chapter, as much as possible.
I'll second that if you're happy with the language.
You happy with the
Conforming as
language?
possible. Yeah. Are you, Jeannie, you're happy with that?
10.2, I,
Yeah, it's 10, 290-10.2.
this is 8. This is Article 8.
I thought we were on Article, yeah, it's Article 8.
Right.
No, but I'm sorry, it references Article 10.
It does.
Yeah, this is, okay.
Article 8.
So, all right, so I'll reword it. I make a motion that we find as a fact that this plan complies as much as possible with 290-8.6 Village Extension District.
Second that.
It makes it twice as good, right? All in favor? Okay. Did that. All right, and we're now at a decision point?
You can approve
Right.
with conditions, or not approve, or deny, but,
But we're at the point where we make that decision?
right. And there was a couple of things I just wanted to bring to your attention. I mean, just so you know, I mean, he has standing because he has the sale agreement, but
Right.
that expires in
2 days?
what, like 2 days? So you might want to put a condition that you maintain that, title of interest, that standing, so that he maintains it, because the permit, when he comes to us, goes with the name, the person, not with the property. So
So how long an extension would you recommend?
he could come in and, well, I don't
He
know,
would have to go to the,
You go back to the Paynes and get a
get him,
purchase and sale extended or closing extension.
So for 10 days, would that be adequate?
I have a question.
you could ask,
Yeah.
yeah.
If you approve the division, my intention was to take the plan and go record it. Okay? So I think that your decision extends to the Paynes and any subsequent owners, because they're the owner right now.
But you did the application.
I did the application, but do I have to come back for anything more? Because I think it's done.
He'll have to go, we have to give you a letter, an order. We'll have to release an order to you from our department. But I mean,
Meeting?
I would think that it would be prudent to extend that for 10 days.
Okay, so 11.
Is that an issue? Is that difficult?
Unless you close by the 24th.
So here's where we're at.
It's a no.
I have an extension already. I didn't update you
That's
because I didn't know if it would be pertinent. Have an extension already. But I also have a requirement. It won't be 10 days. It's the absolute drop dead date is the 29th, and we're targeting the 28th for closing
Okay.
Of March.
of March.
Okay,
So
so,
that's-
That should cover it. As long as you have standing
Mhm.
for the permit.
Yeah.
And you close within that time limit, you should be fine.
Okay, so is there an
that's fine.
actual permit? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think there's going to be
This is the permission to do.
to do this.
And
Okay.
that expires with the expiration of the purchase and sale.
Do you have an extension already?
that's what he said, yeah.
So you
Okay.
To the
just,
28th.
28th,
Not-
yeah.
Closure.
Okay,
do you have a closing extension?
I do.
Okay, then just share that with the powers to be, and as long as you close within that period of time, then you would get that divided lot, 2 divided lots.
Okay, I don't want to complicate things, but what I believe is that if you act today, you're acting on the property itself. It would be, let me just rephrase it. If I wasn't the applicant, let's say it was Mark Ingraham in here on behalf of the Paynes,
Mhm.
there would be no, I mean, my impression or my understanding is that your action today is applicable to the lot, not to the person.
Applicable
person.
to, applicable to
So
the
you have to
plan.
own the land.
You're the applicant. So the only reason you had standing here is because you have a purchase and sale agreement to
Yeah.
purchase it. And to stay in compliance, you
Okay.
need an extension, so you close prior to whatever the extension is.
So let me.
And then that will go with you.
So I kind of don't really care about everything else, except if I close on the 28th, am I okay?
As long as the extension is,
Yeah, he said he has an extension to the 29th, right?
I can show it to you today.
You said a 5-day extension is what you got, correct? So the 29th would be 5 days.
It's, I think it's to the 29th.
Yeah, that's the 29th. That would be 5 days from
yeah, as long as you close
24th.
on or
which was the
before
earlier.
29th, you'll be
Yeah.
fine. It's like,
So one,
Days, yeah.
yeah, one further thing.
Yes.
There's only one well on this
Right.
property. And I'm just wondering whether it makes sense to put a condition that that be recorded as part of the deed.
you mean an easement to feed both?
Well, or just so that the whoever buys it is aware that, particularly
That would have to
actually
be
either one,
disclosed.
that it's a shared well, or the person that doesn't have a well on the property would know that.
Yeah, so Sandy will know this. There's a disclosure requirement
Yep.
when we sell, and the well is addressed and whether it's a
Okay.
shared well.
And you can give an easement to, if you sell that off, could give an easement to service and
Yeah,
maintain that well.
and I'm going to record this plan, which shows the one well on it.
Right. No, I know, this is just an extra protection, and so I'm turning to the 3 experts over there, whether knowing that that is included in the disclosure is adequate for what we were trying to do.
If you could put a condition on it that it's in the deed somewhere or recorded that this is is it a shared well for this
But the
property?
thing
or-
about putting it in the
You-
deed,
you
you can do
could-
that. That's illegal. I
He
mean,
could sell a lot without a well.
Without a well, right,
And that they would have to drill a well
Right.
on that lot.
Right.
To be,
Right.
So I don't know if that would be,
like a,
I don't think it's
Condition, okay.
necessary. If he wants to give an easement to that lot and share it, that's fine, but he doesn't have to. If he owns both lots. So.
But it was also, if it's in the disclosure, then whoever is buying the lot is going to know it.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
Okay.
and then somehow, the only other thing I was on another subject that, because we're through that, I guess, right? That somehow the deed, make sure the deed conforms with the actual survey.
Hmm.
So
Well, yeah.
somehow,
What I normally would do, and this will be sometime in the future. I don't know if it's, a year or 10 years from now, but if you approve this, my next request to Mark Ingraham would be to
Write the
provide
pins
me
up.
the deed descriptions
Yeah.
and go out into the field and set the pins. So I'd have those.
And you record 2 separate
Right.
deeds
When they would be conveyed.
when they're conveyed.
Yeah, but I would ask him to do it now since it's
But you'd have
fresh.
it, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you as a board see any need to put any other provisions there to prevent a crescendo of, again, non-conforming situation?
He's got to meet, if he came back and wanted to put a house
Right,
or a building on that, he would have to comply
That's
with
a separate,
the zoning that complies
right now.
to that. So the town is covered on anything going forward to keep it in compliance. I don't think any.
no,
I
and
don't
that's all
think
we're
of any.
approving is what's on this paper.
On the paper, right.
Yeah, it's the split. Any change to the buildings or anything like that.
Yeah,
Gotta come
all has to be
sequence.
permitted, I
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we just have to have a final vote. Would one of you like to make a motion? Is that right, Jeannie? You're looking serious.
The only thing, the closing situation, we're gonna have the,
Gonna have to have some kind of paperwork, right?
Well, you need a copy of an extension to the
Which I can provide
to the
tonight.
29th or whatever. And would they need to come in and show that it has been purchased on or before the 29th? I mean, is that a contingency that should be put in there?
Yeah, possibly, yeah,
Because if he didn't close to the third, so April 2nd,
right.
they don't have an active contract, they don't have standing.
Okay,
standing has to be maintained or
Maintained.
preserved.
Yeah. or just-
Right title and interest has to be preserved.
Yeah. So as long as he's got an extension and closes on or before that last date, he's fine. But does he need to come in and show you that it's closed?
I think probably that's why you might want to consider it a condition of approval because
that he bring in proof of closing before the
On or
29th,
before.
on or
the-
before the 29th of
an
March.
extension of the current
Or just-
expiration date. You don't have to.
Yeah,
pin-
yeah, right. You're not gonna be pending the certain day you have to close, but just.
But you don't necessarily want to know that it's closed, that it's done. Yeah. So you do want, that would be the condition.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that should be,
before-
yeah,
Within, on or before the.
29th.
extension.
yeah, because it goes with, permit goes with you.
Yeah.
Not with the land.
All right. So our understanding is that there is an extension through the 29th of this month. And so,
But we don't see it.
no, if we approve
Mhm.
this, it would be with the condition that you bring in some documentation that you now own the property
Closing.
before.
Closing extension and proof of purchase.
Yeah, so I can give you the extension tonight. So then that would be done. And then it would just be the follow-up with the closing.
Okay.
All right. So we need a motion to approve with that condition.
Make a motion to approve the division of shoreline lot to 2 lots and with the necessity to show the extension, closing extension, and then document when it was closed. That was closed on or before the extension.
So the
extension.
motion is to approve with that condition.
Yes.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? We threw the chute.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Turn off the camera.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Are you okay with the extension? You're all set?
Yes.
All right, so
Perfect.
Okay, Jeannie?
so you guys are,
You can adjourn and Shannon will turn off.
Turn off this.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Turn off the mics.
Meeting, the public hearing is adjourned. Closed. Whoops.